everyone. How many of you have worked or are working a minimum wage job? How many of you know the pros and cons of raising the current minimum wage? Well, if not, I am going to inform you today on just that, the pros and cons of raising the federal minimum wage. I've conducted this research for an academic paper a few semesters ago, and I have gathered lots of unbiased aspects of both sides. These aspects are the effects of small businesses and unemployment rates, the impact of poverty and the cost of living, and miscellaneous individual effects like health, government spending, and education. Starting with some background, the federal minimum wage is the lowest amount that employers can legally pay their employees. In 1933, the minimum was established by President Franklin Roosevelt as a part of his New Deal to protect labor workers and to balance the economy following the Great Depression. Let's begin by exploring the effects of a higher wage on small businesses and the unemployment rate, as this is one of the largest concerns. Some believe that small businesses will not be able to afford to pay their current number of employees at a higher wage. Jack Kelly, a senior contributor at Forbes magazine, believes that with an increased wage, business owners might raise prices to combat large labor costs. Most consumers do not like higher prices, and they won't pay the price for a good which was cheaper a few days ago. Therefore, consumers will stop buying high-priced goods, and businesses will have a lower profit and may lay off employees because there isn't the usual amount of money coming in. However, an economics professor at Texas A&M thinks that instead of raising prices, some business owners will expect more from their workers. And if these workers do not meet these new standards from their employers might have a higher incentive to move towards automation and technology, therefore eliminating human labor costs, but increasing the unemployment rate. However, it is important to note that any potential increase will happen gradually, allowing small businesses to adjust to the changing labor costs over the period of 6 years. 37 studies reviewed by 2 professors at Dartmouth and Michigan State Universities show no reason to believe that an increase in the federal minimum wage will have an impact on the unemployment rate. These studies were conducted using meta-analysis, a form of statistical analysis, and basically the pair of professors were able to take multiple estimates of the effects of raising the minimum wage and got a single estimate that is superior to the individuals. Another important factor regarding increasing the federal minimum wage include the impact of poverty and the cost of living. Ben Zipperer, an economist at the Economic Policy Institute, states that 38 million people are living in poverty in just the United States alone, and a large portion of these people have a minimum wage job. At the current minimum of $7.25, a full-time minimum wage worker would make just over $15,000 a year, only $2,000 above the poverty line. With an increased minimum wage, several thousands of people in the United States would climb over the poverty line. Also, at the current minimum, the annual income is barely enough to cover basic costs of living, let alone to build savings or to support a family. However, Jack Kelly, again from Forbes, argues that since the cost of living varies in every county of every state, a nationwide standard wage does not make sense. However, when many minimum wage workers are unable to live off their annual income, it is completely against the origin of the minimum wage. In FDR's 1933 address regarding the creation of the minimum wage, he stated, quote, that no business which depends for existence on paying less than living wages to its workers has any right to continue in this country, end quote. There are many other factors that will be influenced by a change of the federal minimum wage. Nagin, a consultant of California's Child Welfare Policy and the National Children Alliance and Neglect Data System, NCA-NDS, has evidence of health benefits after previous increases of the federal minimum wage. These include a lower amount of infant deaths, tiny birth weights, and early deaths of low-wage workers. A study conducted by the NCA-NDS found a 9.6 decrease of child neglect for every $1 increase of the federal minimum wage. Another factor is the government's welfare spending. The Economic Policy Institute in 2014 conducted research about a $10.10 minimum wage and concluded that the government's welfare spending would be reduced by $7.6 billion per year because more families would no longer be dependent. However, there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of people who will now be barely above the qualification line for such benefits like SNAP and free or discounted school lunches. Finally, many people do not believe in raising the minimum wage because they believe most minimum wage workers are just teenagers trying to make an extra buck. While this statement is sometimes true, a large number of teenagers living in poverty work minimum wage jobs to help provide for their families. It's common for these kids to go to work instead of going to school, completing assignments, and studying for exams. A 2014 study determined that if the federal minimum wage would increase, it is likely that many of these teenagers would be able to work less hours, therefore allowing them to attend classes and complete assignments and study for their exams. However, Mark J. Perry, an economics professor, notes that it is possible that a new attractive $15 wage will promote high school students to skip class or completely drop out of school to proceed into the workforce. Let's recap. Today, we were able to talk about several pros and cons of raising the federal minimum wage, including the effects on small businesses and unemployment, poverty and the cost of living, and health, government spending, and education. I hope that these perspectives of raising the minimum wage will leave you questioning your opinions, understanding others' opinions, and craving more minimum wage information. Thank you.